tuck your gut in.
All right, so when I cast my birds for doing this type of thing, if you can't hood them, that's fine. We can just cover up their face, but it's better if you can hood them. And what I'm gonna do is called casting, where you take them and you either wrap them or you grab them. The way I do it, if they have a hood on, is I simply go like this, grab both their legs, and don't let go. And then I push in his wings, flip him upside down, and that's where this shirt comes in. Because the thing we don't want is for his wings to be flailing around or damaging any feathers. So I use the shirt to just kind of burrito wrap them. But what I do with their feet, because this is the worst part, is that if you get caught in there and it's a hunting bird, you're gonna get some serious holes, and once they grab something when they're cast, they are not gonna let go. So you're gonna be in a lot of pain. So what I do, if you take their feet and you point them like this and you hold that joint, their feet will open and they can't close them. It's a tendon issue. So once they're like this, their feet are locked open. Once they go like this, they can close them again. So I take the feet and I take the leash. I always have the leash on the bird, and I wrap. And once I get past the swivel, I start wrapping their toes. That isn't to say that you can't get hurt, but you're less likely to. And then I put that in there. And then I take their feet and I lay them down this way so they're farther away from their head. And then wrap it. You don't want to overheat your bird. So if it's really warm outside, you got to make sure that you're not holding them too tight. Birds don't have diaphragms, so their breathing, they have to consciously breathe in and out. If you hold them too tight, you can kill them. Trust me, if you hold a bird that tight, you're gonna know that you're starting to kill it, because it's gonna start flailing and gasping. It's not an easy way to kill a bird, but you can do it, and you can get them so deprived in oxygen that they literally just pass out. So once they're wrapped like this, they're like, oh, okay, I'm okay. So I do it a little bit differently. A lot of people will use a Dremel. I don't like using a Dremel because A, they get hot, B, you can go too far, and you can also get caught up in something and then it gets stuck in the shirt or whatever, or pulls out their feathers. To me, it's a little bit more dangerous, but if you gotta be down and dirty and get your bird done, a Dremel is the way to go. So all birds have, their beaks don't just grow this way, they grow this way. So if you just trim the end of their beak, what you're gonna see is a beak tip that comes out of a blunt edge. And that's because they've grown this way as well. You need to get rid of the sides as well as the tip, and you want a nice curve. Their bottom beak has a little bit of a curve to it, but if it goes too far, they can't move their tongue. So you always have to check that as well. You want them to have perfect alignment so that they can eat their food. If their beak is too long, they can't swallow their food either. The way that their tongue works is they have the tip of their tongue and then they have like a fork back here. So they pull the food, put it on the tip of their tongue, they flick it off and grab it with that fork. But if their beak is too long, they can't flick the food off. So you'll see them doing this and not being able to get to the food is because their beak is too long. And there is a natural marking that you'll be able to see if you do this right. So I start with a scalpel. You can get these at like veterinary supply places. And I usually put my finger over the sear, but not blocking his nostril because he has to breathe, just so that I don't cut his sear because it is razor sharp. I've been doing this on him a long time. So I just use the scalpel to kind of peel away at the beak, and you'll start to see the natural curve of his beak show up in I'll show you in just a second. And people will send me pictures and their birds' beaks look like this, where you see little chips and stuff. That's just because they haven't been coaxed in a while. With Ranger, we feed quail, and quail is super rich and makes their beaks grow really fast. So his about every 6 months. Some of my birds, I never do because they just don't need it. So you'll start to see this line start to form right here as we get a little bit thinner. and you'll actually start to see it come down to right about here. All this is extra right now, but I don't want to just cut it off straight. He needs a pointed beak to be able to eat his food properly. And this scalpel is kind of dull. I've used it a lot.
He's the one that goes. And then, you know, if his teeth are too long, he's going to break them up. Because I don't have my buddy to hold them. And it's too hot. You know, we do a lot of stuff together. Everything is like...
And the reason I use a scalpel as opposed to the file at this point is just because it's a little bit better precision. When you're doing falcons, it's a little bit different. They have to have a notch in their beak. So you have to pay attention to where that notch is, and it will start to grow down with their beak, so you have to kind of develop that notch all over again. But you'll see it as you start to scrape away. And you'll see that line start to form, see right there? And you can see how it comes down right here. That's where it's supposed to go. I would not, unless you have, if you fresh catch your bird right off the trap, take a picture of their beak, because their beak is probably right. If you go on the internet, you'll see a lot of pictures of birds that are captive and their beaks are overgrown, and you'll think that's how their beak needs to be. It isn't. I see so many pictures of birds with their beak overgrown, and it's almost embarrassing. But it might be that you just haven't gotten to it yet.
What's the line that you're...
So the line of where his beak should be. So it's right, and it comes down right here.
Okay, and then it stops.
Yeah, so his beak should be right like that. And you want to maintain that natural curve. If their beak is too long, it'll start to straighten out also. And so you got to kind of recurve it. But you want it to be, the reason their beaks are shaped like that is because that's how they eat. So we try to keep his beak as natural shaped as possible. So you've seen the line now? Right there? That's where it's supposed to go. So that's our goal. So we're getting off all that excess. And I look at it straight on to see which side needs it more. He tends to grow more on this side than on the other side. I don't know why. Just him. He's so used to getting this done, he just chills.
How often are you having...
With him, we do it about every 6 months. His beak grows really fast. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the dog clippers just to save me some time, but I don't want to clip it too short because he needs that natural point, right? So I'm going to go right here, which is a little bit longer than he needs it, but now you can see it's all blunt and it's overgrown right here. So we'll just scrape a little bit more just to make it pretty.
I turned away while you were making the cut. You cut off.
I cut off the tip of his beak.
About 1/8 of an inch?
It was just below the natural line.
And if you did more, you would drop blood?
You could. Birds are not going to bleed to death unless you cut off their entire beak. And super glue, it might be, yeah. Then I have these files that you get at like Walmart. They're super rough, and then I'll use that to shape the tip of his beak. But you want them to have that natural flow. You want them to look, because it's, you know, nature's designed perfectly.
What's that scalpel tool you're using?
Just a scalpel.
Just a scalpel?
Yep. I get them at a veterinary supply place. There's a place in my town called Santa Cruz Medical. In fact, that's where I get all my prescriptions for my animals too. But that first aid kit is completely stuff that came out of, that I bought at Santa Cruz Medical. We have an account there, so, because we have...
How many birds do you have?
Currently I only have 18. 6 of those are, I know, 6 of those are breeders, No, I take that back. 8 of them. I have a pair of kestrels also.
What were you saying about super glue?
If they start to bleed, super glue, it hurts. Don't get me wrong, it hurts. But it will stop the bleeding right away. You can use cornstarch. I always have a quick stop. I carry my first aid kit everywhere I go. I'm like sweating. Super glue hurts. Have you ever had your skin glued together?
Yeah, I've used this before.
Oh, it hurts.
So it hurts the birds, you're saying? Or?
Yeah, I will for a second. When I do it, I never do it unless I have a hood on them because the fumes will get in their eyes and it'll burn their eyes. So as soon as I do, I cover their eyes, I put the super glue on, and I blow immediately. It'll dry it faster, but it also gets rid of the fumes. Because you know, to lift fingerprints, they use super glue. A lot of times to lift prints. The super glue fumes, not actual super glue. I mean, not super glue on it. So his beak could go a little bit short. See, there's a little bit of blood. But that's a more natural flow. He'll easily be able to stab his food, pick up his food. You can see how it's supposed to be, like it has that nice natural curve to it. And then I have, and these are on Amazon, the diamond nail files, just for a little bit more. To me, getting a Dremel in here is too scary. I know, we're almost done. So then I always open their mouth and check the inside to make sure that that part's not overgrown because they both grow. So you can see he's got a little bit of flaking, which means that, you know, he's got a little bit of there, but we want to make sure that curvature inside of his mouth is, come on, Ranger, thank you. If you stick your finger in the back of their mouth, you're not going to get bit. And it only hurts if you're doing bald eagles. But I always do that. Just, it's got to have a little bit of curvature, but we don't want it too curved or his tongue can't slide through it. And if you have to do the tip, if it's not meshing quite right. Some birds, you'll see that their bottom jaw's a little offset because they got an injury when they were young, or they might have gotten an injury to their nerves. And you just want to make sure that everything lines up perfectly. It's crucial for them to be able to eat their food efficiently, that everything. But if you look at his, you can see, stick out your tongue, my friend. You can see that little fork on the back. And when you're tube feeding birds, their trachea is attached to their tongue. So if they stick their tongue out, you'll see their trachea. If you have to tube feed your bird, you slide to the side and don't go down that hole or you're gonna kill your bird. But if you just slide to the side when you're tube feeding, if you have to tube feed a bird, you're gonna miss that trachea. And usually as soon as you stick something in the back of their throat, they're like, oh, and then you'll see it and you'll know that you don't get it. You only make that mistake once.
You have to tube feed your bird.
If they're sick, yeah.
And for giving liquid medications?
I just inject mice and let them eat them.
Or but medicine, if there's some kind of oral medication?
Just plop it in. I just stick it on the side of their mouth.
That same.
Falcons are more susceptible to sauerkraut. So if they eat and it's too warm for them to digest, it'll like turn to rancid goo. So you have to get that out, and then you have to get good bacteria in. And
what's your method?
I use apple cider vinegar.
Okay.
A lot of water, a little bit of apple cider vinegar. I will have somebody hold them like this, and then like that. And usually, you want to get their neck nice and straight, and their beak will open. We'll slide the tube in. We'll let them get it into their crop like this, and then I'll turn them upside down in case anything didn't go quite far enough. Hold their mouth up and shake to make sure that they don't aspirate anything. If you have a falcon that gets sauerkraut, you have about a 25% chance of saving it.
Just to prevent them from aspirating? You're
Yeah,
putting the tube down
you want
the
it to get
trachea.
in their crop.
The tube goes into the crop,
Yeah.
where the food is.
Yeah.
And the trachea, how do you prevent them from aspirating?
Don't put it in the trachea. Oh, hold them upside down.
Okay.
Shake. I had one that was so sick. My friend who was walking, I actually will stick my finger in and pull the bad stuff out.
Yeah. I've seen
I
that
know,
done
you're
with
such a
chickens.
good boy. But then I will tube them with apple cider vinegar because it kind of de-escalates
Vinegar is
the,
going, okay.
yeah, into their crop. With mine, I couldn't get all the food out because it was goo. I put apple cider vinegar in, He still was really, really sick, and he was gonna die. So my friend said, all right, it's either gonna kill your bird or it's gonna save your bird's life, but you grab it by the end of the leash and swing it around in a circle. Whatever's in there is gonna come out. It was the most horrible thing I'd ever done. My bird did die, but it did get everything out of his crop. But so when I take them out of the casting, I move my hand down their chest so that I now have my fingers between his feet. You'll see as soon as I open it up.
I'm gonna see if I get some cooler air.
Fingers are between his feet. And then we undo. And their talons need to be trimmed from time to time too. His are really long.
I keep a swinging perch with lots of,
Yes.
and that just works on the. They sit there and go like this, works on the talon tips, and they get sharp. as
And you
heck.
know what it does
Swinging
too?
perch.
It makes them not clamp on your glove as hard because they learn to use their leg muscles rather than their feet.
Okay.
I'm a big advocate for swinging perches.
Okay.
You get like a log about that big around, preferably one with some good soft bark on it.
Yeah.
Not a lot of little sticky things coming out because that can kind of hurt the feet. But, you know, you
He's not a hunting bird, so I don't care that his talons are
and their toes
blunt,
get in it. And
but they will
everything.
sharpen up in a matter of days. All
Which
right.
is the natural bark of the tree on this one? The natural bark as a
Yeah, if you can. It doesn't have to be. But make sure you don't have little things sticking up that'll get in the feet.
What's an ideal surface?
Because they land on it. you
What
know.
would the ideal surface for a swinging perch?
A good soft bark.
Yeah.
Bark.
And when you get your first glove and you get your first bird, I can't impress to you enough how important this little device is. Before you pick up your bird, you clip it onto their swivel. When you put your bird down and you are tying your falconer's knot, you don't undo that until your bird is secure. I always try to have two forms of security on my bird. So this is number one, this is number two. I don't tie mine here, I just wrap around my fingers, but never, ever, ever have something super loose because when they bait, they can get their head stuck in it, and then they're frustrated and they're getting mad at you because obviously they didn't do it to themselves.